back again. A fantastic, inspirational guest again on the show, but one close to my own heart and close to most of you guys in terms of the messages we get of, Gavin, it would be great if you could, bring this particular topic to the surface again, even though we've spoken about it before, but obviously it's one of the big ones that keeps on popping up. And I was totally inspired by this guy's story from a previous guest that we had on the show. And I was so inspired, I sent the guys out to get that guy because we want to get him on the show. It's Tom Chapman, and he's the founder of the Lions Barber Collective and here to talk training. So, yeah, you might be thinking, what the hell has that got to do with construction? We'll get into it when we get into the conversation. Tom, it's an absolute pleasure to have you. Whereabouts are you at the moment in terms of the world?
Well, I'm in the English Riviera. I'm in Torquay in Devon, and it is reasonably sunny. So, we've got palm trees. It's not quite tropic weather, but best we're going to get.
So would you class yourself as a hairdresser or a barber?
I mean, I started off in Tony and Guy, so I was a hairdresser to start off with. All the girls never wanted to do the lads' hair when they came in because they just, I don't know whether it was the lack of skills or whatever, but I used to cut all my mates' hair. So all the lads ended up in my chair in Tony and Guy. So I ended up going more down that direction. It's more fun hanging out with the lads anyway, I found, than cutting the women's hair.
Yeah. And whereabouts then in terms of your career with Tony and Guy? How long did you stay with them? Like it seems like you went up as a directorship and stuff like that, was it?
Yeah, well, I was with Tony and Guy for a while. I'll tell you, it's quite funny actually. I did my A levels. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was going to go to uni. I was going to study ancient history and Egyptology, and but all that time I used to cut my own hair. I used to dye every color under the sun until it was so dead out to shave it off and start again. When I was going to go to uni, my mum said to me, "What are you doing going to uni? You're not going to be Indiana Jones. Give it a rest for the ancient history stuff. Why don't you do hairdressing? You love doing hair. You love doing your mate's hair." And it never even occurred to me, but I went out and did it in the end. And all my tutors at A level were all disappointed in me because I wasn't going to university. And then when I got to Tony and Guy, all the girls there were sort of confused that I hadn't gone to university. I wish I'd worked hard to go to university. And a lot of my mates thought I was gay because we're talking 20 odd years ago now, because I was going as a straight male going into hairdressing, must be gay. A lot of my mates were in construction. I think they very quickly realised that the fact that I was inside in the warm whilst they were out in the winter, and they used to come and meet me from work. I don't know why. All those girls used to come and meet me. "Oh, come and meet you from work, Tom." You're like, "Yeah, all right, yeah." Really coming to see me. So I used to hang around. So I think they realised quite quickly I had it quite easy in there.
You created probably a niche market for yourself as a non-gay hairstylist and hairdresser, huh?
Yeah. Different times now, though. But I mean, you're talking 20 odd years ago. But yeah, and then I was at Tony and Guy for a while. Then I went off and worked for an independent salon, and then 2011 opened my own salon. And I focused more on men's hair and ended up being a global barber director, which meant I traveled around the world cutting hair on stage, developed products, delivered and developed education, and I was very lucky to do that. I went around the world doing that, everywhere from Brazil to Australia to all over America and Europe.
Wow!
And so that was great. That was great fun, great experience. But then that all changed actually when a friend of mine ended up taking his life, and that kind of took me down a completely different direction. Something that I never would have imagined I'd ever be in the arena that I wouldn't be in. If you took me back 10 years ago, this is not where I thought I would be in 10 years' time,
Yeah, that's a tough one. So in terms of your career direction, do you think it changed you as a person and it changed your career?
Yeah, 100%. When I lost my mate to suicide, I hadn't experienced mental health before, really. I'd had a great upbringing, a loving family. Mum and dad still together now. I hadn't really experienced anything like that before, so it was a big shock to me. I'd seen him a few days before, didn't realize he was struggling, and then when I found out via social media, just as I was going to bed, I can remember, obviously I didn't get much sleep that night, but I just remember thinking a lot of what if I'd asked him when I saw him? What have I noticed? What have I been able to recognise that he was struggling? What if he had said he was struggling? What would I have done then? I didn't know what to do in that situation. And I can remember being at his funeral at the crematorium, and just I was one of the first people not to have a seat because it was so busy, and I was stood up next to him, looking back at the room, and that's such a unique position to be in at a funeral. Normally a funeral is a very internal emotional experience. You're looking at the back of people's heads, looking at the person speaking at the front of the room, thinking about that individual. And I was looking back at this room that spilled out into the foyer, full of people, all sad, all loved him, and all couldn't believe that he was gone. I thought, how can he have this many people that love him and care? And he felt that this was his only option. Like, he felt so alone. Like, that was and still is a driving moment for me to make me think I wanted to make a difference. And that's kind of what drove me forward. And then that it led to me, like I said, I knew a lot of high profile barbers in the industry, and I thought I need to do something. And we created a catalogue of men's haircut images. They all donated haircut images, and the idea was we were going to put that together, a coffee table style book in barbershops. When you go in, and if you're old enough to remember those haircut magazines, the idea is kind of like that. It's a catalogue of men's haircut images you can flick through and see which one you want for inspiration. But there would be messaging of mental health in there, and suicide prevention, and signposting to different resources. And that was the original sort of idea, as a one-off, maybe an annual event. I mean, that damaged my mental health. Like trying to organise 30 bloody barbers, like herding cats. But I was talking to my clients about it, and they all said pretty much the same thing. It's amazing what you're doing. You really helped me when I was going through insert problem here. And I'd never really seen it as that from my side of view. I knew I talked and listened to people. My manager at Tony and Guy saying to me, be ready to be a therapist as well as a hairdresser. But it never really occurred to me. But one of the guys in my chair was actually suicidal. And I hadn't really had any training at the time. And I just listened to him and reassured him that it would be okay. And there are places you can go seek help, and signpost him to things. And he actually went to end his own life. But the conversation we had in the chair that day was enough to stop him in that moment, get back in his car, go see his family, and start his journey to recovery. And I can very happily say he's still with us today, which is 10 years later. And he's got a baby boy, and he's got a business and married and house and all those kind of things. And it's just amazing to think that moment in the hairdresser or barber's chair was enough to make him change his mind and keep him with us. And that's when I thought, maybe there's something in this. How many other barbers and hairdressers are having these conversations daily there and not realizing the impact or value of what they do?
Yeah, I think as you're talking there, what I'm thinking of is you're like a Trojan horse that can get into the construction industry in a discreet but in the right reasons. For the model that we're looking for is that you want somebody that's can talk to people without sort of like can disarm them into a relaxed, safe environment. That sounds very much like you've found that place that who else would get an hour of somebody's attention or 30 minutes of somebody's attention. In my case, 5 minutes of somebody's attention because I've no hair. But then be able to connect with them. You have all the skill sets when you think about it. You've got the personality, you've got the location, you've got the demographic. I think it's hats off. Like I just think it's brilliant. The model is absolutely fantastic. Like to be able to tap into this demographic, and you would have a very good spread of a population that you can see a lot of this stuff. Give us some idea of some of the campaigns that you've done then from that.
Yeah, look, I think we've had amazing experiences in the construction, especially. We get to take we do a pop-up safe space barbershop. We've done it everywhere from festivals to sporting events, like Cardiff City to Download Festival to those kind of things. But the construction sites are always we always have such a laugh when we go to them. We're always such good fun. We have such engaging conversations, and basically we turn up. We've got our barber chairs. We set them up on site somewhere, I mean, it's funny, it's not the most glamorous. So go back to me talking about my friends, coming to meet me at Tony and Guy, and I'm in a nice warm place with all the beautiful women, and they're outside on site, and working hard for 20 years, and I finally made it to the construction site in the dust cutting hair. But it's the engagement we get when we get there is just phenomenal. I can remember doing we were on site in central London somewhere, and they also wanted to blur into one after you've done so many. But we had a new member of the team with us, and she said to me, "These guys can actually talk to me about stuff. These all these big lads, all these big scaffolders and all this." I said, "Look, just wait and see what happens." I can't say they will, I can't say they won't. And she come back to me at lunch. I can't believe how open they are, and how ready and willing they are to talk. And essentially, the setup is, it's a barber chair. They come and sit down. People like hairdressers. People like barbers. It's a positive experience. People enjoy going to have their haircut. They feel better afterwards because they look better. But also, there's a license to touch. Like you said, you've got 30 minutes with one-to-one human contact, which is so rare these days. You're actually present in the moment. There's so many distractions. The license to touch, the trust. You trust us to do this. You'll never, a lot of the time, you're never going to see us again. But in the salon or barber experience, we're a familiar stranger. We've known people for years, but we're not their friends, if you know what I mean. We're kind of slightly distanced from them, and people just feel comfortable to talk to us. And literally, all we do is we do the consultation. What do you want done to your hair? And then when we start having that haircut process starts, we'll say to them, "So do you know about Lions Barber Collective? Do you know what we do?" And 99% of the time they'll say, "No, we don't know what's going on," or they might say, "Oh, we've heard it's a mental health thing." And we just explain to them that what we are, what we do. We're here to create a safe space. All our barbers are trained in mental health conversations. We're not doctors, we're not therapists, but we're here to have a safe conversation about it and know about any resources and techniques that may be able to help. And then after that, people will say, "Well, do you know what? Actually, I went through this," or, "Joe, actually, I'm struggling with this at the moment," or, "My partner's struggling with this," or, "One of the lads on site," and it's amazing how quickly they will open up, because I do believe people want to talk about it, but it's just about finding that space. And because we're not a direct employee, we're not a direct, we're not employee, we're not a direct employee, we're not part of the team. People are concerned about things being reported back and having an effect on their job or their career. But they can talk to us, and obviously, if we need to, we can report back, which we have had to do in the past a few times with direct suicide interventions or just people in concern. But the thing is, you just explain to them that if your employer has got us here, they actually care about you. Do you know what I mean? They wouldn't be coming here if they didn't care. And I think it's trying to change that mindset, that because mental health is seen as something that people are. So I don't know if you've heard of Dr. Brene Brown, but she talks about shame and studies shame. And when she studied shame in women, it came down to a multitude of things. It could be pretty much anything women felt shame about. When it came to men, it always came back to being seen to be weak, that weakness. And mental health has been aligned with men as a weakness for so long. And therefore shame. So to reassure them that it's not shameful, it's not a weakness, and your employee cares about you, because why else would we be here? You start to build up that trust and relationship between the guys on site and their employer as well, reassuring them that they actually do care in a very
non-judgmental,
safe, kind of fun kind of way. Like I can remember doing one mental health week for a big construction company. Again, I think it's on Canary Wharf, but it was like it was us and a couple of other charities, and the other charities had a couple of charities, and us. And those charities had like a couple of older volunteers behind a desk with lots of literature on it, and it just seemed to create a barrier. And then we had these guys like just hanging around, coming back, having chat, banter, laughs, talking about conversations and the engagement. I think that was the first time I really noticed our value of what we do. Do you know what I mean? That level of engagement, because mental health is a difficult thing to get guys to engage with.
You see it in the prison service as well. That the barber shop within the prison service, or the barber within the prison service, seems to be the chief sort of mediator, or the chief sort of go-to person to offload your problems. But at the same time, it's kind of the vanity side of things is there as well, that you're getting somebody to feel good about themselves, obviously through a haircut.
Exactly that.
Yeah,
Exactly that. And look, if you look good, you feel good, right? That does go a long way. And that human touch as well, the intimacy of touching, like there's not much human touch anymore, less and less as time goes on. Really, I feel
yeah,
we're probably less connected than we ever been, even though we feel like we're more connected because of things like the internet and our phones. And I think male to male contact is even rarer again. So
yeah,
there's not many people that you would let touch your hand, neck, face. Do
yeah,
you know what I mean? But I'm a complete stranger. You sit in a chair facing away from me, and you trust me to wave a pair of very sharp scissors around your head. And it's wild, really, when you think about
yeah,
it. But there's that huge trust there, and it's a positive experience. Talking about something that is often very cold and clinical uh, and seen as quite negative and scary. So to
yeah.
have that carrot on the end of the stick of the haircut for the conversation about mental health is amazing. And plus, they're also a bit of a captive audience. Once you got that gown on them,
Yeah, yeah, they're not
they
going
can't
anywhere. But
leave.
like, I was actually thinking about that earlier on in this conversation. You know, it's very rarely you see people taking out a mobile phone and sort of like, while they're getting their hair cut, because
Yeah,
I think from a male point of view, I don't know about females, but from a male point of view, you look across and you go, what an absolute. If you see someone on the phone, because it is
yeah,
disrespectful. Like, I don't know about
yeah,
you, but have you had experiences of people like, just being the sort of the
yeah,
loud, brash, you remember
yeah.
the guy with the big phone going down the street
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah. I remember that sketch. Yeah, it's what I mean. Look, it's one of those things, isn't it? It's everyone's individual. We have lots of experiences with stuff, but I think the majority, 99% of the time, we've got people that are sitting in the chair, they're engaged. It's difficult for people to have to be on their phone because you've got to keep their head upright to cut their hair, you're cutting around their ears, so it kind of limits that, which is a good
yeah,
thing. Again, it's not very often that you're not on your phone or you're not on a device of some shape or form, or you're not being distracted by 3 or 4 different things at the same
yeah,
time, whether it's someone asking you something to do something at work, or an email coming in, a WhatsApp, a Instagram, a LinkedIn,
yeah,
whatever. Yeah, it's a constant barrage of
yeah,
information, and also people need you all the time, and to have to shut off for that for 20, 30, 40 minutes and have a conversation. It's amazing. And also, I think it was Samaritans that did the study originally, but men are better at talking whilst doing something else.
yeah.
And that's why these things like having a haircut, going for a walk, doing, if you ever go on a drive with somebody, go on a road trip, you always have great conversations. You're not,
That's right.
there's this whole thing of, if you're not, if you're talking to your kid, like, look at me when when you're listening to me. I need to know, I need to know that you're listening to me by you're looking at me. And
Yeah,
actually, that doesn't, eye contact is a great way of letting someone know you are listening, but you don't have to be, side by side is actually more effective. Eye contact can be quite confrontational. Sitting across a desk at somebody and asking them, so what's going on with you? Is everything okay? How are you feeling?
yeah,
It kind of feels like you're at the doctor's, or it's quite official, and
yeah,
actually, that's not a very comfortable situation, especially for guys, to be able to have these conversations around mental health. So
yeah,
by uh, implementing that haircut experience, people feel comfortable, and then things flow, and it's that non-judgmental, safe space, and they're just enjoying having the haircut, and it just it seems to work, and the engagement again. Like I've said it before, it's just incredible how open these
these
guys
people
and
are.
girls are
Yeah,
with us on sites.
yeah. Like
It's always just such good fun.
you can hear. Like, I know people have tried, and I'm not knocking it. And it has its place. Like, but you hear of mindfulness being used and
Mm.
meditation, and I've 100% like in yoga and stuff like that. Like, I get all that, but like,
Yeah,
especially in the construction industry sort of space, it kind of that's awkward. That making people feel awkward in themselves to try and
yeah,
get into that space. And some people in construction will say, no, absolutely, give it to me. I'll do that all day. I love it. But
yeah.
it's not. It's not. It doesn't cover everybody. Whereas the barber covers everybody. Like,
I mean, it's accessibility, isn't it? It's
yeah,
accessibility of it, and I think mental health is. I've done loads of events. I've done loads of public speaking stuff. I've gone
yeah,
to mental health and well-being festivals, and I've been the only guy there. Even I'm speaking. It's a lot of generally it's sort of it's middle-aged, middle class meditation in a field, kind of yoga and chanting and
yeah.
all these kind of
Shamanic.
things. And it's not very accessible for the everyday guy or person, or
Yeah,
that doesn't draw guys in. And it made me feel uncomfortable as a guy in mental health. It was not a
yeah,
very nice environment for me to feel. I didn't feel comfortable enough to engage in those things. I felt really out of place. So it's about, and it's horses for courses, isn't it? It's just like, it's everyone has their own things that they feel comfortable in, and I think mental health needs to be accessible for all. And a haircut is something that most people can relate to and most people enjoy. And even when we're on site, I mean, God knows how many times we have the joke where a bald guy walks past, takes his hat off. Anything you can do with this, lad? And but they're still engaging with us, and it's they're still engaging with this space. And I've heard from previous people, the likes of Mason, Berkeley Holmes, and other people that we've worked with in the construction arena, that the conversation goes on about it for weeks, months after we've gone. Remember when the barbers came in and this?
The crack.
And I think that's what's in it for me. It's changing that perception of mental health, of being a cold clinical thing, to being something that is
socially acceptable. Socially acceptable.
Yeah. We all have a brain, right? We all suffer with stuff.
While we're on the topic of socially acceptable, just be clear on it. It's not just male, is it? Is it male and female? Because obviously there's a good demographic. So obviously all the females go to you because you were the Tony and Guy expert.
We cover everybody. We cover everybody when we do the events: long hair, short hair, all different hair types, all that. Religion, mental health doesn't care, where you're from, what you believe in, what you look like. It's about the human condition. I think that's kind of what we need to be. The human condition is we all need to love and be loved, and we need to belong. And mental health is often seen as something that we deal with once we get it. And I think there's a lot of that preventative thing, and that's why what we're about is having that preventative action, because the worst case scenario is suicide, and there's no cure to that, right? And prevention is better than cure. So how do we have these early interventions? How do we have these conversations? Whether that is doing these pop-ups, getting people to connect with the on-site or in-business resources that are available. Like we did stuff with one company that had their own in-house team that run the mental health stuff. They're mental health first aiders, but they've also got other roles within this, and I can't remember the name of it now, but they had that, and they said that people aren't accessing it. So when we did our pop-up, that team were there with us, and anyone that's had any kind of concerns or worries, we still will speak to these guys. These guys are here, they're on site, they're here all the time. And the amount of them that said, I didn't realize it was you that did that. I have seen posters for it in the toilets, but I didn't realize it was you that did it. Because it's not the fact they don't want to talk to them, because we've had conversations afterwards and gone, Christ, since you've come in and done that, we've had lads coming up to us on site, just in the middle of the site, going, I want to talk to you about this. I've been struggling with this, blah, blah, and like, can we go into the office and talk about this? It's maybe probably not the best place to have this conversation. And they were like, it wasn't the conversation they were scared of. It was crossing that threshold into an office and knocking on the door and being scared of being judged, or being scared of being losing their job, or whatever it may be, loss of opportunity. But once we had this conversation with them and introduced them to them in a safer, fun environment of the haircut, they built that bond and that relationship that was done. So they had these conversations free flowing in the middle of the site, which is amazing to see, isn't it?
Well, let's just talk about the business of that, because this stuff is not cheap, and you're giving your time, and all the barbers are giving their time, and I'm sure probably it was pro bono at the start. Just let's see what happens here, guys, if we can make an impact. But at the scale that I know that you're doing this, like, that's not cheap.
No.
So like a tier 1 company or a tier 2 company would come to you and say, hey, Tom, we've got this project, 1,000 guys on the job, could we take you for half a day? Talk me through that. How does that work?
So look, we were, so the little bit of a brief history of the Lions Barber Collective and where we are today. It started off in 2015 with that original idea I mentioned earlier. It kind of grew into a charity it was the last week of 2017, I think we became a charity. That charity grew, but through, I think, the post-COVID world, lack of funding, and it got very difficult. The charity closed last year, but I've continued the mission myself, and we are now a limited company, and it's become something that it's actually been a bit of a blessing, because I don't know if anyone knows how charity works. We have a board of trustees. Everything has to go through them. We have a constitution. It's not very flexible. You've got to, this is what we do and this is it. And But now being a limited company, it's given me the flexibility to be able to work with the people I want to work with and make bespoke events for people. So we do lots of things with different people. The things that we offer, obviously the pop-up barbershops, which are hugely popular and very engaging. We've done everything from one barber and one host, or one barber by themselves for half days, right through to 5 chairs with 5 barbers, myself hosting, delivering talks, delivering training as well, because we do the pop-ups. We also deliver the training, the Here to Talk training, which has just been launched online last week, 2 weeks ago. So that people can do it remotely as well as getting us in. Oh, thank you. And the idea is to be able to start conversations, right, in safe spaces. So however that we can make that work, we can make bespoke events for people no matter what size they are. Like some people want a big grand gesture event, and other people want to have a more ongoing thing, like this a company we work with, we do monthly events with them, with one barber, one chair, and they have a monthly event. We've done quarterly events with people. So it's literally the beauty of now is that I have the freedom to be able to build bespoke things to people's budgets and work with the people I want to work with, especially if they genuinely care about this sort of thing and want to have an engaging way to start these conversations. And also with the training, continue those conversations, because the training that I developed alongside Dr. Peter Aitken, who is a clinical psychologist, and he was former medical director for Sussex. He oversaw everything I created to make sure it's all safe, and which is very important. But we were both very adamant that we wanted it to be in sort of my language rather than his language. After a lot of the training that I went on was very clinical, very diagnostic. This is psychosis, this is bipolar. But in reality is we don't need to know those things. We're not doctors. You work with these colleagues, and you are capable of recognizing they're struggling and having the confidence to ask them, because with this training, what to do if they say they are struggling. Because we've had 7 people now in the last few years that have done the training, told me they've come on the training because they lost someone to suicide. And at the end of the training, said they lost someone to suicide and didn't recognize they were struggling, didn't recognize anything was going on. At the end of the training, they've come to me, these 7 people, and said, look, after I did recognize that they were isolating more, I did recognize that they were drinking more, I did recognize that they were whatever it may be, but I didn't ask him because I was scared. So I justified that behavior. And now I realize that I could have asked them, but I was scared to. And I think that's awfully sad, but also incredible that there's that. The whole point of training is to empower people to know that they are capable of doing this. We don't need to be a doctor or a therapist. And like I said to you before we got started, there's so many campaigns telling people to talk about their problems, but then what happens when they do? And if someone opens up to you, it's an honor because they trust you. Like you're probably the first person they've told. And if you don't know what to do and you say something like panic and just say something like, oh mate, you're all right, you'll be fine, you've got a great life. For those people worse off than you, that reconfirms to them that no one really wants to listen to them. So, and that might be the one chance we had. So that's the angle of the training, the conversation. The barbers get fully trained in this conversation training that we do, the here to talk. And it's about empowering as many conversations as possible in as many places as possible, so that we can do early interventions. Because the whole point is to try and catch people before they're at a moment of crisis, when it's very difficult to get back up out of that, because they've probably on the verge of losing their job. They're probably using something to self-medicate. They may have lost their family, may have lost their home, and that's a really steep slope to try and climb out of. But if we can catch them earlier and have these conversations regularly, even if it's just little things like that, we all have stresses, right? We all have strains. We all have in the workplace, at home, and our third space. Those 3 places are where if you ask anybody about their struggles, it's normally in one of those 3 places. And give them the opportunity to open up and offload about that, even if it's just a whinge about the partner or whinge about your boss or whatever that may be. Those things are incredibly valuable of releasing the stress and build up. So
that little pressure build up. Like
it's about those things.
It's so important, I believe, and I'm not an expert in mental health, and I don't proclaim to be, but we had this in the pre-chat chat, and you've just mentioned it there, is bringing out Pandora's box and taking this information, which is so powerful in terms of being able to absorb and extract this information. What do you do with it next is the big picture. And I don't think, there's a lot of guys out there, companies out there, and, whilst their mission might be very credible, the execution of what they're delivering might actually be counterproductive, because, if you don't act on this information in a manner that's going to be professionally managed, the worry is that you've just, you've created this monster of a problem, making it worse for the individual. And, I'm I'm very sort of um, inspired by the fact that yours is a joined up approach. It's kind of, you say, we're here to get that information out within a controlled environment, with the correct professionals around, that can then be handed over the baton of,
Yeah.
Gavin needs support. It's a medium risk, or it's a high risk, or it's a low risk, but here's where we have it at this stage, and we've done a triage, if you like, of the
Yeah.
information, and now here's the information for you, so you can bring it now to A&E, or into critical ICU, or whatever it is. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And that's so important. I think, from my perspective, for what it's worth, for anybody listening, and of course, there's plenty of places to reach out, and we'll put in some links if you're having some issues in this area. But like what you have been saying is, when you do go into these environments, you have to look at the 360 picture, as opposed to,
Mm.
oh my God, this is a great idea. It's a campaign, and we can go back to the client and say, look what we done for mental health. But, what's the impact of that?
Yeah. Yeah. Look, I think it's really important to know what you're doing, and also take some of the pressure off the individuals themselves. Like the barbers, or the people working on site. So, example, they feel safe to have these conversations, because they know that they don't have to fix and solve this problem. There are other people out there that they can pass this person on to. It's about looking after both the listener and the sufferer. Like,
Yeah,
it's about keeping yourself, both of you, safe. Like, imagine you're on site and you have a conversation with Bill before you leave. Do you know what I mean? Like, and he's in a moment of crisis. Like, you can't stay with Bill all night on site. You've got to be
yeah,
able to, you've got to get home to your family. Also, you can't be their only sole support system, because that's going to damage your mental health. You can check in
yeah,
on them, be with them, but how do you keep them safe as well? How do you keep them safe for now, and what other
yeah,
resources are available? I mean, I can give you an example of we did a pop up in a place up north. Obviously, I'll keep it vague enough to not
yeah,
say who it is and where it was, but it was up north, and it was the last client of the day in the chair. I cut their hair. They were struggling through something quite serious, a lot of physical pain, and they basically had a plan to end their life. They had a plan to end their life that weekend. They told me about this, disclosed everything to me, and I stayed with this individual to keep them safe until I felt that they were safe. Essentially, it's listening to them. You're not telling them that I understand, I know what you're going through, because you don't. No one understands what anyone else is going through. It's more the case of, look, I don't know what you're going through, man, but talk to me. Let me try to understand how you're feeling. And instead of telling them things like, oh, you should be glad to be alive because of this, this, and this, help them explore the reasons why they're glad to be alive. I learned loads of interesting. He was an amazing guy. Loads of interesting facts about him, and all the things he did outside of his work, and inspirational stuff as well. And we explored that, and you start to see him smile and realize and recognize what's going on. And again, like you said, I wasn't going to let him leave by himself. He wasn't in a point of crisis where we needed to call an ambulance, because you can do that if you are in a moment of crisis, and that you don't know what else to do. They're not going to help themselves. You can call an ambulance. They will come and support you in
yeah,
that situation, which is because you need to get out of your hands and into someone professional. But he would allow me to call one of his friends and have his friend there waiting for him when he got back to his home. And I was happy to let him leave at that point, at which point we then spoke to the occupational therapist, reported everything back. let them know what was going on, informed the guy that we had spoken to them, and they managed to keep him safe. And this was a while ago, and when we went back to that place, he was still there, and
Well
he
done,
was
Tom.
being seen. So that is the breakdown in a nutshell way of that's the most extreme case. It's the most extreme case. But with the training, we work on the 4 pillars. Recognize the signs that someone's struggling. Essentially, we're not here to diagnose. It's just changes in people's behaviour. I'm going to say Bill again because it's the name I said a second ago. But you know what Bill's like. He's always late. He always brings a packed lunch. He's never brushed his hair. Whatever. Do you know what I mean? But then if Bill all of a sudden turns up really early, he's really smart, and he's splashing cash, getting flash lunches and stuff, something's changed. That means something's happened, right? And then it's out of ordinary behaviour. And then you ask him a question. Ask, I've noticed you're splashing the cash a bit. Is everything all right, Bill? It could be simple as that. And you start to build from that. And then the really important bit is realizing you don't need to fix it. It's listening well with empathy without judgment. Don't keep butting in. Don't tell them how they feel. Don't try and offer solutions too quickly. Let them tell you the story. Give them that space. And it's amazing that we don't like silences. We find them very awkward. But a lot of the time people are trying to verbalize what they've got going on in their head, and it can be difficult, especially if it's a difficult subject. But if you stay quiet, that person will tell you more and open up more. And then it's basically repeating those. Whilst you're listening, you're recognizing more signs, you're asking more questions, you repeat the listening. And then the last pillar is help. How do we help this person find the help they need? What is the relevant resource we can send them to? Is it a simple case of the conversation was enough?
Yeah.
Sometimes it is. You don't need to do any more. Other times it can be a moment of crisis, call an ambulance. Some other times it can be great resources like hubofhope.co.uk or mypickle.org or Samaritans or Papyrus, and there's a lot of them, and that can be enough. That can literally be enough. But it's not about turning people into doctors or therapists, it's about having these conversations, early interventions, giving people confidence to engage in this conversation and start it without fearing the worst, and knowing that they know what to do worst case scenario, keeping both them and the listeners and the sufferer safe.
And I was actually having a conversation with a taxi driver about this podcast that was coming up, and I was like explaining about yourself, and he thought it was a fantastic initiative, which obviously turns out now it's a business, and the best of luck with it. But one of the things we got on talking about was health and fitness, and how there's so many people that you come across within, say, for example, like running or triathlons or swimming and stuff like that, where your thoughts are to yourself, where you can go out for like a 3K run and stuff like that. And there's so many sufferers that have mental health issues, but use sport as a medium to sort of bring their headspace out of negative zones into a positive environment where they're within their own thoughts, that are in like a safe environment, and that they're obviously making themselves feel better because they look better, because they're doing this sporting activity and stuff like that. And I think, again, I'm not an expert, but I do believe that and having an outlet, having some form of a way that you can sort of detract yourself from the negative situation and put yourself into a positive environment, probably doesn't get enough spoken about either. Like, some might say most people that are into running are running away from something, and it's there might be an element of truth in it, but like if you're listening to the podcast, health and fitness is a great way to sort of release that valve as well. Maybe you might give some narrative on that, Tom.
Yeah, look, I mean, I have had a very rough 2 years myself. I'll put my hand up and say I've struggled. I had suicidal ideology. I never actually thought I was going to actually do it, but there were points where I thought, I can't go on with this. I've been through, obviously, the closure of the charity was something that I started up and was very close. I thought, all this I've worked for the last 9 years is gone. I went through a divorce, didn't know I was going to keep my house, didn't know, I see my kids half the time now, all those kind of things. And if it wasn't for the gym, I don't think I'd still be here now. In the last 2.5, 3 years, I have lost about 10 stone now. I put on a lot of weight when I was unhappy in the marriage, a lot of work pressures with the charity, traveling around the country, talking about mental health, hotel to hotel by myself. A lot of, like I say, isolation by yourself. And that was, it's a big struggle and a lot of pressures. And the gym, like 2.5-3 years ago now, I said, oh, this enough is enough. I need to look after myself, my boys, and talking about mental health. I need to get my mental health into great case. And like I said, with the charity closing down, in retrospect now, I probably have the best work-life balance I've ever had. I have the freedom and flexibility to do my work, and something that I'm very passionate about I believe is my mission with helping people through the vehicle of the Lions Bible Collective and here to talk training and making a difference in saving lives. That is really important to me, but I'm also able to be with my kids when I have them for the week. I have at 3:30 when I pick them up from school. I don't do any more work in the evening. I put it down and I pick it up when they've gone to work, when they've gone to school, and the next day, and then I make up for it and travel when I haven't got the boys. So this week is going to be very busy with events and emails and things like this, and that's great. I have that, I have that ability to balance that now. But the exercise is such a great way. Look, the 5 steps to well-being are connect with others, be physically active, learn new skills, give to others, and be present. So they're the 5 things that we need to do regularly to look after our well-being. And those 5 things are completely different for everybody. Like being physically active for me is, I love going for walks. I love going to the gym and lifting weights. That's my thing. Like you talked about running. I hate running. Like I if someone said to me, look, go for a run, it's really good for your mental health, I might set the alarm for a Saturday morning, and then I'd dread it all week. The alarm would go off. I probably wouldn't go, let's face it. And then, especially if it was raining or something, any excuse. And then I'd feel bad for not going. That's not going to be good for my mental health. But I get up and go to the gym, especially I had a situation a couple of weeks ago when my boys left and one of them was really sad to leave. And it was heartbreaking. And there would have been a point where I would have gone out in town and gone on beers and what have you. And I would have felt rough the next day. But I went to the gym instead. I said, well, I'm going to go to the gym. And I got that out of me. And I went to the cinema by myself and watched a film and came home and had an early night and woke up Sunday morning feeling refreshed and much better for it. So, the coping mechanisms out there, some are healthy, some aren't healthy, and some of them can lead down certain paths. And I think I've tried them all. But for me, exercise is a great way of releasing endorphins. I think when you talked about it mentally, but also physically, when you start to look good as well, you feel more confident in yourself. And I just got back from the first holiday I've had with friends since I was 18, and just 4 days away in the sun, and I felt comfortable taking my shirt off by the pool and jumping. And it was just such a nice feeling to be able to sit there and by no means am I sort of Greek god chiseled, but I've got rid of 10 stone. Do you know what I mean? So it's an amazing feeling, that as well.
Well, thank you very much for sharing and being vulnerable with us on that, Tom, because it says a lot about you as well. But what comes across about you is you are obviously an empath. And I was going to ask you that question as you were talking earlier on, is how do you protect yourself from all of these stories and I've seen it in the past. Now, my wife, and as a side note, works as a medium, and she that's one big thing that she works on, that she had worked on before she started practicing. That was like, how do you shut down and protect yourself, and how do you sort of cleanse yourself from this information? Because it's very admirable to be helping people, but like to absorb that information is a big, heavy sack to carry.
It's huge, isn't it? It's about resilience, building up resilience. I think over the years working in the hair industry, you have so many conversations that you try not to hold on to the next, because you're talking to the next person, but that can build up, obviously, and especially if it's repetitive conversations around these kind of things, right? And I feel like in the last, this has been a roller coaster for me since doing the Lions Barber Collective. In the hair salon, I got up every day, went to cut hair, knew exactly what was coming in. I had a routine, and I went from that to working with the Lions, where it was like up and down. We're going to get this falls through, ups and downs. Align that with conversations around suicide, losing. I've lost friends since, because I've I suppose you're a product of your environment, right? So I'm working in mental health and suicide prevention. So therefore, you end up working with people who are in this vulnerable position, and they become
Yeah.
friends, and you lose them. And so I'm very lucky that I've got people like Dr. Peter Aiken as a friend. I know what works for me over the years using the 5 steps of well-being, how to keep myself mentally well. But it's something actually that I've talked about for a long time. Like, who listens to the listener, right?
Yeah.
Who's supporting the sport, and it's something that I'm going to be starting a campaign with. I've tried to get something in place for the hair and beauty industry, especially because they see 10 to 12 people every day without
Yeah.
fail, 5-6 days a week, which is more than a Samaritan would talk to. It's more than a therapist would see. But Samaritans have to offload before they finish their shift. Therapists have to have therapists. Who's looking after the hair and beauty industry? And one of the top reasons they leave is emotional burnout. So who's looking after them? Where's their support system? And actually kind of trying to fight for something or someone to help support them, but also in the meantime signpost them to support and information which is relevant for everybody. Samaritans, for example, they're a listening service, right? You don't have to be
Yeah.
suicidal. You could be in a situation where you're struggling with something that someone else has told you and it's confidential. No one's in danger, so you can't really tell anyone else, but you can offload to Samaritan. So I think it's something that everybody should know, that
Yeah.
you find out what's right for you. It could be therapy, it could be simple as calling Samaritans, it could be sport, it could be whatever it is for you. It's very individualized. And those 5 steps of well-being, which you can look up online,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of self-prescribe your own. It's part of our training. We do it in our training as well, but you can kind of self-prescribe your own things that fit into that. And they're those things you need to do to help keep you resilient, to keep you mentally well. But I do think, that is very important. And I think people get confused with like gossip. Oh, I can't say what they've told me because I don't want to be a gossip. And it's a very big difference between saying, oh, have you heard so and so's doing this? And that, compared to, oh, I spoke with somebody and they're really struggling because of this. And it's actually kind of taken a bit of an effect on me because
Yeah.
I've been quite empathetic, and, it makes me feel quite sad. That's a big difference between gossip and offloading, I think
It
that's
is.
kind of
Yeah.
what we've got to remember.
Well, let me throw a few curveballs at you because we like to do that here.
Okay.
Knowing what you know now, Tom, what would you do different in life?
What would I do different in life? That is a very difficult one. I think, the journey I've been on has had its ups and downs, like any life would. But if I could remember a winning lottery ticket and go back in time and do that, then I'd do that because that'd be nice, because I'd be able to fund this nice and easily and give it to everyone for free. But yeah, I don't think I'd change anything. I've got 2 lovely boys. I live in a lovely part of the world. I've got a lovely family. I'm doing something that means something to me. My mission is my purpose, and I don't think I would change anything really, because I'm here where I am now.
Right.
So
The best business advice you ever got?
I tell you what, about 8 years ago, I was told, maybe even longer than that. I was told to get the copyright and IP for the Lions Barber Collective, because charities always end up failing or falling apart about the 10-year mark, or they get rid of the founder. The trustees get rid of the founder. If you own Lions Barber Collective, which you came up with, then they can't get rid of you completely, and it'll still be part of you. Still have a say in the journey of it. And lo and behold, 9 years later, it folded because through lack of funding and what have you. So I can still continue my mission. So that was probably the best
Yeah.
bit of advice I ever had.
A bit like WeWork. He had the trademark, didn't he? When everything crashed around him, he still owns the trademark to WeWork, We Live, and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
Just turns out he was renting it back to the company.
Lots of people do that.
The favorite holiday destination, or go-to holiday destination for you?
I tell you what, I'm a bit of a Disney freak. I've been to Disney World or Disneyland or Disney Paris, California. I've been combined 13 times in my life. So,
Oh, Jesus.
yeah, when I was traveling a lot and doing the hair industry stuff, and I did the LA hair show. Every time I went out to do that, I'd always ask the person who's booking it to book my flight a few days later, so I could go to Disneyland by myself and just do that for a couple of days.
Brilliant.
So,
I love
yeah,
it. I love
yeah,
it.
yeah.
Something about you that not many people would know, and I think apart from maybe the doctorate, if people don't
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
Tom was awarded. I'll let you take the stage on that one, Tom.
Yeah. I got an honorary doctorate from Exeter University last year, for recognising my work in mental health, which was a big surprise for me. I didn't even really know what they were, to be honest with you. It wasn't something that I was aiming to get, and they just came out and offered it to me, and it was just amazing. It was a bit of a whirlwind day, really. I had to give a speech to all the law students that were, completing their degrees, and it was I felt a bit sorry for them, because other people that were there, that were sort of rock stars and comedians and Nobel Prize winners, and then me there. But it was a good day. Other than that, something that people don't know about me. When I was a kid, I used to be a drummer in a bagpipe band, and I was actually in Scotland at a big event, drumming, and was the day that Princess Diana died, and that was my first ever hangover.
Wow.
I was 15.
Wow. Yeah, you have a bit of Robert Wallace about you. All right. I can see that. Talk to me about, just because we're close to the end of the show, but just give us an idea of the business, what you can do for people, how you can help, how they can get in touch with you. Let's take the floor, Tom, and just, tell the listeners or the viewers.
Yeah, look, I mean, we are, our mission is to create these non-clinical, non-judgmental safe spaces where people feel comfortable to talk about their mental health, and then be able to signpost them to support and information. We do that through the mediums of a haircut. We use that big of a haircut to open these conversations. We do the pop-up barber shops, which can be very bespoke, from one barber, one chair, right through to sort of 5 barbers and 5 chairs. And we will come along, and we have all the equipment. All we need is space and a bit of power, a plug socket, and we can cut hair and start conversations alone, or we can work with the in-house teams to make sure that we have the best engagement. The other things we do is the online training, and the in-person training around, which we've discussed multiple times, to be able to get those conversations started early on your sites or in your business. Everything from office space right to basically on the ground working. And it's making people think, like, how would you feel knowing that you've helped save someone's life on your site? You've reduced that risk of people taking their life, and these people have had fun doing it in an engaging way, and they all look bloody brilliant with fantastic haircuts. And also, it's great PR. People love it, having the pictures of us cutting hair on site. It's a great way of letting people know that you're doing things for the right reasons, and
and it's
give a damn
here
about those people work.
It's here2talktraining.com. So HERETO talktraining.com.
Yeah, that's it. And you can find us on social media as well. I mean, I'm on LinkedIn, Tom Chapman on
Tom
LLD.
Chapman.
You'll find me on there. And then, like, Instagram is probably the one we use the most for Lions Bible Collective, and Here to Talk MH. And you'll find me if you want to come to me directly, Tom Chapman _hair, I think I am. And if you want to fire us an email, that's all on the website. You can get in contact, contact sheet on there, and we'll be able to have a call, have some time together, work out if what we're doing is right for you, and how we can make it work and have a positive impact and save lives where you are.
It's an absolute inspiration. I highly commend you for everything that you've done, and thanks for sharing the vulnerability of your own mental health issues. Your friend, obviously, that sadly passed away, and anybody that's listened to the show that has suffering, please reach out. There's plenty of organizations like the Samaritans and others that we've mentioned in the show. We need to be very respectful of your health and your well-being, and we know that a lot of people in construction are suffering from that, and the likes of Tom is a credible champion in the space. And I'm sure, Tom, if you reach out to Tom, he can also point you in the right direction. Tom, it's been a pleasure. We'd love to get you on the show again in the future. We wish you the very best with the business, and talk to you again in the future.
Brilliant. Thank you ever so much for having me.
Take care.